Today we review Taz-Mania 2, or in the PAL regions just known as Taz-Mania on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Beam Software and released in 1993 in the PAL regions and 4 years later, in 1997, in North America. It is a platformer starring the Tasmanian Devil as the main character. Two crocodiles try to catch you and you escape their traps and kill all living things you see on the way as a deadly twister. The presentation of the game is very easy. The backgrounds are simple and the music track, well, I'm happy there is one, is repeating itself often. The sprites look okay, but not much more. That gives the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fast-paced. From the basic idea, it's a bit like a Sonic game. You can make the typical twister, and in that time you are nearly invincible and super fast. In that moment the game is really fun. The problem is just that you have an energy bar to use that ability, and the amount of time you can use it is low. You can only regenerate it with items you find on the way, and these appear seldom. So the main ability, and the thing that makes the game fun, you're scared to use because for some jumps you seem to need it. The boss fights additionally have the big problem that you cannot really see if you made a hit, you just have to guess. A lot of problems in that game. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It has too many problems in the gameplay to be fun, and the presentation is also below average. Sorry Tasmanian Devil, you deserve better. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Dig Dug on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by No Production and released in North America and the PAL regions in 1992. It is a port of the arcade game Dig Dug that released in 1982. This game showed me that Quest Fantasy Challenge for the Game Boy Color that we reviewed was from the concept just a cheap copy of Dig Dug. Dig Dug works in the same way. You dig around and kill all the enemies in a level, or, depending on the game mode, find keys in the level. You can kill enemies by letting heavy objects fall on them or by inflating them with air until they explode. That sounds like a horrible way to die. The presentation of the game is very simple. The dirt has some different textures, but that's about it from the difference between levels. There are only 2 kinds of enemies, and that's it. The background music is also repeating itself quickly, but it is getting faster during a level. The presentation might be close to the arcade, but it's nothing special. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fine. You run around the level and kill the enemies. Some levels, in which you need to find the keys, have a bit challenging layouts, but in general the game is, well, very arcade-like obviously. It works and it is fun, but not that much. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a fine arcade game, but nothing that is really catching me today. I actually like Quest Fantasy Challenge more. I have to admit that it's just a cheap copy and that's 17 years after the original arcade game, but it is more fun. Especially because the enemies in Dig Dug fly so easily through the dirt. In Quest Fantasy Challenge I can and have to make the way for them, and most of the enemies cannot just float through the dirt. That is more fun and at least a bit strategic. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Pinball Tycoon on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Ignition Entertainment and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. From the title I first thought it would be a game where you build and manage a pinball hall, and was quite excited, but no. It is a very bad pinball game with 4 tables that all have a gold money theme. The game looks extremely shitty, and we talk about a Game Boy Advance game. The table backgrounds are just some pixelated mess and just an image. Nothing happens on the table besides some lights lighting up from time to time. The whole thing is so bad it makes me angry. The ball has no animations, and the worst thing is nothing that interacts with the ball has any impact. There are no animations for bouncers getting touched or anything like that. It is like a still image. Worse than games that released years before. The sound also sucks. The background music is okay. I give the presentation 0.5 out of 5 points. The problems with the presentation carry over to the gameplay. You feel nothing but disappointment when playing this game. No impact, and that in a pinball game. There is no fun, nothing. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I'm a big fan of pinball in real life and good digital pinball games, but this is a disgrace of pinball. I hope the people of Ignition Entertainment are ashamed of their work. I give the game overall 0.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Agassi Tennis Generation on Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Acre Pacific and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. The game released in different versions on many consoles. It is, like the title suggests, a tennis game. You play in quick matches, arcade or championship mode in single and double tennis games against the computer or each other. The presentation of the game is not very good. The sprites for the characters look a bit weird. They are realistic and kind of look like pictures, but too pixelated. The animations are really stiff too, and the transitions between them is bad. Everything else besides the sprites look even worse. The stadium, referee and audience is literally just a background picture with no animations. The ball is most of the time just 5 pixels, without any animations. There's no background music during the matches and just a few repeating sound effects. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is bad too. No matter what mode you play, it's all the same. Tennis matches. Which would be fine if they would be good, but sadly they're not. The animations, and with that the complete feeling, is off. Sometimes you don't even touch the ball and it still counts as a hit, and sometimes the ball travels right through you. The game feels cheap. I give the game 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. There are so many better tennis games. Try out Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Color if you're looking for one. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review Tokio Senki Eiyuu Retsuden on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Human Entertainment and released 1992 exclusively in Japan. It is a grand strategy game in which you try to conquer all the other kingdoms, I guess? I don't speak Japanese and I tried to translate everything for this review, but it was not so easy. What I understood is that it is a grand strategy game in which multiple kingdoms fight against each other trying to conquer the rest. This game looks rather unspectacular, but not bad. I think, especially for the original Game Boy, it looks quite good. The overworld map is easy recognizable and the screens are clear. The background music is nice and sounds epic. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is quite deep for a Game Boy game. Every year has multiple different phases. In the first one you can develop your country and explore the surroundings to find new heroes. In the second phase you can hire soldiers, and in the third one you can attack the neighboring cities. Since I'm not fluent in Japanese, I have trouble judging the complexity of the game. What I understood impressed me. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. You really need to understand Japanese to know what's happening. The game is reminding me of Nobunaga's ambition on the Game Boy, but it looks way better. So I'm a bit sad that I cannot understand more what is happening. Maybe someday we do a translation patch for it. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Back from the Sewers, or in Europe known as Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Konami and released in 1991 and 1992 in North America, Japan and the PAL regions. It is a beat-em-up game with platform elements starring the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it is the second of 3 Game Boy Ninja Turtles games. The game looks quite nice. Already the main menu has some nice going underground animation, and the backgrounds and sprites look well done and very recognizable. Additionally, there's some great background music, like a remix of the main theme. Since there are no colors, it is hard to see the difference of the turtles besides the weapons. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is a bit below average. It is a standard beat 'em up with 4 different playable characters, the 4 turtles. Sadly, the difference in the playstyles between them is minimal, and the game is missing some of the basic beat 'em up things like throwing enemies and special moves. The enemies are respawning very quickly, which can be quite annoying. There are boss fights, special levels, and different style of levels like skateboard levels, so there's some variety in the levels, but the main fighting system is sadly feeling a bit weak. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. It is an okay beat 'em up game, but also not too special. The fighting doesn't have the right kind of pow, especially because the enemies normally die in one hit, so there are no combinations or anything like that. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Trouballs on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Paragon 5 and released 2001 exclusively in North America. It is a Tetris-like puzzler game in which you need to rotate balls to get a minimum of 4 balls of the same color together to make them disappear. The game is saved by a password system. The presentation of the game is very bad. The game itself just uses half the screen and is extremely simple. The other half of the screen is used for a pixelated mess representing famous sightseeing objects. The main menu looks like someone drew it in paint, and the cover of the game looks like a funny picture of someone's physics teacher. The biggest joke, maybe Tetris the title screen, is the "well done" or "try again" text that float one time over the screen at the end of a level. The only positive part about the presentation is that there is background music, which often repeats itself and is not very inspiring, but at least there is some. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is okay. The basic idea of the puzzler with the rotating mechanic is not so innovative or interesting, but fine. The levels are mainly more puzzles than a Tetris, for example. You really have to look at the layout first and think a moment, otherwise you are left with 2 balls of one color that cannot be destroyed anymore. A weird decision for such a thinking puzzle game is a very limited number of lives that require you to put a password in to continue back at the level. Unnecessary and annoying. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, it sucks. It tries to be Tetris, but is missing the fun and addictiveness of Tetris. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Lucky Luke Desperado Train on the Game Boy Color. This game was released 2000 and released exclusively in the PAL regions. Like the title suggests, it is a game about the cowboy that shoots faster than its own shadow, Lucky Luke. The game is in most parts a platform or shoot 'em up game, but also has a lot of mini-games like a gallery shooter, minecart races, boat driving, throwing bones and more. The game looks quite good. Every aspect of the game, the music, UI and so on, you can see the cowboys theme coming through. The sprites and backgrounds look quite good too, and I like the background music. The foreground, on the other hand, can look a bit weird. In the platform levels, they use kind of a parallaxing effect when you move, so that the foreground moves faster than the background. That can be a cool effect, but in this case the foreground moves so fast that it feels a bit like the city is driving away. Still, the game looks good, and I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise, it feels a bit like the game is trying too many things at the same time, but is not making anything very good. The platformer levels feel fine, and I like that there's a climbing mechanic. The shooting, on the other hand, feels not very good. I needed a moment to realize that my shoots are actually hitting the enemy, because it looks like they dodged away. So most minigames are very simple and often simply bad. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an okay platformer, but nothing very impressive. Maybe a hardcore Lucky Luke fan finds the patience to play through it, but for the rest, there's nothing special. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Tetris 2 on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Nintendo and Tosi and released 1993 and 1994 everywhere. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version that added better music and colors. This game is the official successor of Tetris and is following a similar game style, but with some big changes. This time the blocks have different colors, and you destroy blocks not by making a full line, but by having a horizontal or vertical line of at least 3 blocks with the same color. The goal in every round is to destroy the pulsating orbs that are placed before. There are 2 game modes, one where you try to survive as long as you can, and one puzzle mode in which you try to beat the level with the least blocks. The game looks nice and clean. The presentation is doing nothing surprising, but it's doing its job. There is some nice background music and the game screen is clear. The only small issue with the presentation is that it can be hard to recognize the different colors of the blocks. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay works good. The new concepts make sense and they give a very different feeling than the original Tetris. Which is not necessarily a good thing, but just looking at Tetris 2 for itself, it is a good puzzler with a solid gameplay. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. Tetris 2 is a good puzzler and worth your time if you're tired of the original. In many ways the game feels like the logical successor. There are more block variations, a new, more complicated way to destroy the blocks, and new objectives with the orbs. I still think Tetris 1 is better. The beauty of Tetris is because it is simple. So the successor is, at least for me, not nearly as good as Tetris. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review Hoyle card games on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Sandbox Interactive and released 2000 exclusively in North America. The game is a collection of 14 different card games, for example Crazy 8s, Cribbage, Solitaire, Go Fish and War. The game is looking really good. The cards are clear to see and every game has some unique background and background music. The games even have little animations, like a fish jumping out of the water and Go Fish or the tanks fighting in War. There are additionally a lot of playable and enemy characters. They are just different pictures, but still. They went with the presentation way further than they had to for the gameplay and I appreciate that. The only thing that is really not well presented is a way too long help text for the games. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what you expect. There are a lot of card games and you can play them against a computer, hold seat or with link cable. The game plays as intended. I don't have anything else to say. The amount of different games is good, but nothing unexpected. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? If you want to play card games on the Game Boy Color, yes. It is exactly that. The card games on the Game Boy Color. There are no surprises or interesting changes, so if you want, for some reason, play that card game on the Game Boy Color, that game is great for you. But for the rest, there's nothing to discover. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Pocahontas on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Black Pearl Software and released 1996 in North America and the PAL regions. It is a platformer puzzler game in the style of Prince of Persia and is based on the Disney movie Pocahontas. You can switch between Pocahontas and the raccoon Miko to solve puzzles and save all the animals. The presentation is very simple. The backgrounds are mostly just simple white or black blocks with some trees on it. Without knowing the movie I couldn't even say in which kind of area or biome the game plays. The sprite looks okay, but the animations all feel a bit clunky and slow. Sometimes it's hard to see where you can climb up, and the interactable objects look often out of place. The only positive part about the presentation is the Game Boy versions of Colors of the Wind. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is even worse than the presentation. You just get thrown into the game, no objective, no story, nothing. And then you run around and try to find things. The puzzles are mostly pushing blocks, and that's it. The controls feel very bad and the whole thing is no fun. The running around and jumping is just awkward, and the switching mechanic between Pocahontas and Miko, which is the only interesting thing the game has, is mostly pointless. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game sucks. A lot. I'm a big Disney fan, but I have the feeling Black Pearl Software is not. Otherwise, I would have put a little bit more effort into that. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review Magical Tetris Challenge, also known as Tetris Adventure Susumi Miketo Nakamatachi in Japan, on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Capcom and is a Tetris game starring Mickey Mouse and his friends. The game is not only offering classic Tetris, but in total 7 different game modes and a story mode, in which you need to finish certain challenges in the different modes to earn coins and win the game. The game looks really good, everything is colorful and the music is fine too. Since it is a Tetris game, the basic layout is what you expect. You can additionally see the character you play in the corner doing some movements. That can be a bit distracting, to be honest. And the story mode is also an overworld, which looks easy but does its job fine. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise, I think that is one of the best Tetris games of all times. It has a lot of different game modes, like a versus or challenger mode, there's a story mode, the controls feel good, everything feels right about the game. In the story mode, the different playable characters need to get different coins, so there's some replayability there too. That feels like the perfect Tetris game. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is Tetris in one of its best forms. It is great. Go play it. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review Quiz Sekai Warschau by Shoubai on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Sun-L and released 1992 exclusively in Japan. It is a quiz game based on a Japanese TV show. The presentation of the game is quite nice. They took some effort to make different characters and a little start cutscene. The design of the quiz itself is rather simple, but it's doing its job fine. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what you would expect. It is a quiz game, and with that the basic gameplay is clear. They ask questions and you answer. It was a bit hard for me since the questions are timed against the NPC player and I needed some time to translate them. I didn't see anything special from a gameplay part. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. You really need to speak Japanese to answer the questions on time, but even if you do, there's nothing very interesting. It is a standard quiz game. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Calcio Bit on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Parity Bit and released 2006 exclusively in Japan. It is a football manager game. You manage your club, take care of the training of your players, set the formation, and then watch as the NPC battle it out. The presentation of the game is okay. The game looks cute, and during the matches there are 22 little figures running around, which looks not bad. The menus, on the other hand, look not very good. Everything besides the matches themselves is very basic. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is a management game that doesn't take itself too serious. The training plan works with cards you get during the games, and the most management aspects are quite light-hearted and simplified. On the other hand, there is nothing wacky or funny happening during the matches or anything like that. So it is a simplified management game, but the matches are slow and a bit boring. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game doesn't find the right balance between serious and not. The most management aspects are too simple, and there's nothing to replace the complexity that is lost. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Doraemon no Study Boy Kuku game on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Shogakukan and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. It is a mathematic learning game starring Doraemon and is focusing on the multiplication table from 1 to 9. The presentation of the game is bad. The menus look weird, the background music sounds like it's broken, and the minigames have no redeeming parts about them either. There are a lot of negative things to say about the presentation, but not many positive things. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is multiplication games. Sometimes you need to press the right results of the calculation, and sometimes you need to write the right number for the calculation. The game doesn't have much variety. The gameplay is not very good, but I'm also not the target audience, so it's a bit hard to judge. I do think they could have put more efforts into these minigames. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Maybe if you have strong problems with your multiplication tables from 1 to 9, but if you have a question in that range, just write it in the comments and we figure it out together. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we reviewed The Incredibles on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Helix and released 2004 everywhere. The game is using a localized name in every region. It is a beat-em-up game starring The Incredibles. You play mostly Mr. Incredible, run through the levels and destroy a lot of enemies on the way. The game is saved by a password system. I really like the presentation of the game. The animations of the characters look great and have a sense of humor to them. The backgrounds, especially in the city, look very good. Sadly, the background later in the jungle is repeating itself a bit often. The story is told with pictures of the movie, which is a bit cheap. The music comes from the movie too and is very good. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The problem of the game is the gameplay. You only have one real character, Mr. Incredible. The other playable characters are more like mini-games, and Mr. Incredible doesn't have so interesting moves. The whole fighting system has a problem that it's not very interesting. It feels good for the first 2 minutes, but then it just feels like a drag. There's nothing interesting to do and the fights take forever because a lot of enemies spawn. After the fight you go to meters and another bunch of enemies spawn. The boss fights are also repeating quickly and are very boring. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, sadly not. In the first moment I thought the game would be good, but every minute it got harder and harder to play that game. It is not incredible. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Shaman King, Chou-sen, Senjiryakketsu, Meramera Hen and Funbari Hen on the Game Boy Color. These games were developed by Studio Seisensen and released simultaneously 2001 exclusively in Japan. There are 2 versions of the same game that just have different playable characters. The game is a card game based on the manga and anime Shaman King. You play different scenarios with the 3 playable characters of the version that you have. The presentation of the game is not great. The game is very text heavy and the dialogues are presented in a boring style with just a few different pixelated backgrounds and the always same faces of the people talking. I had to press A many times until I finally could play the card game. The card game itself looks okay, but not very impressive. You can see everything important, so the gameplay is not much impacted by the presentation, but the presentation itself is not very good. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The game is sadly just in Japanese, but I tried to figure the rules of the game out with some translation software. You can have up to 2 shamans and they can have a maximum of 3 spirits. You can buff these spirits with different cards and use them to attack the enemy spirits or shaman. The moment the enemy shamans have 0 life points, you win the game. The gameplay is okay, but not much more. Maybe if you go deeper in the game, there are more strategic options, but I found myself and my decisions to be limited. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. You really need to speak Japanese to understand, and even then the game has too much dialogue and too less card games. Maybe fans of the card game can enjoy it, but without knowing the rules it is hard. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Hunter x Hunter, Hunter no Keifu on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Konami and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. It is well, it's hard to describe what it really is. A tactical RPG maybe? It is based on the manga and anime Hunter x Hunter. The game is heavily relying on text and cutscenes, and the real gameplay parts of it are weird. You are in one map with the other hunters, and you can always choose 2 actions to do in one turn, like walking, talking or searching for things. You and the others do the actions at the same time. The presentation of the game is mixed. The cutscenes and dialogues look quite good. They have some nice backgrounds, and the talking characters actually have some animations for moving their eyes and mouths whenever they talk. That is done nicely. The real playing parts, on the other hand, look very simple and not very good. Additionally, the game looks often a little bit buggy. Whenever people run into each other, they kind of port back to their original position. That gives the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay part is extremely bad. I have no idea who thought this would be fun. You choose your actions and then you do them and walk, for example. But the game is so slow that it's painful to do anything. The first level is literally just running a marathon, and you walk for like 10 minutes and nothing else happens. Just choosing walk and walk. Next turn. That is all. In the next level you need to find 2 items on the floor and the problems are the same. There's nearly nothing I would call gameplay. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I don't even know if I would call it a game. I have no idea what this is. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review Splitz, on Japan known as Splitz Nigare 15 game on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Enigma Variations and released in 1993. It is a puzzle game. The game uses a typical sliding puzzle as a main gameplay, but with some funny twists. You need to get the tiles first, and there are obstacles like opening and closing doors on the walls, where tiles can fly through, or tiles that don't belong to the pictures that you need to get rid of. The presentation of the game is very basic. You have a picture of a famous person as a background, and that is it. There's not much more presentation than this. There is a little start cutscene and some background music, but not much more to say. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very basic too. It is a sliding puzzle game that is in every second video game. The obstacles are more like a little bit annoying and that is it. They are not game changing in any way. The game is more like a mini game than a full game. Sometimes some annoying things happen, like a bomb that you need to get rid of in a certain time or you will lose 1 life. That is all the gameplay there is. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not interesting in any way. This sliding puzzle you will see in so many video games already, and this game offers nothing more besides being even more annoying than the puzzle normally is. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Mina no Soft series Mina no Mahjong on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by MTO and released 2003 exclusively in Japan. It is a Mahjong game, not like Windows Solitaire Mahjong, but like the real Mahjong. You can play in a versus or in a tournament mode against the NPC. I'm not a huge fan of the presentation. The playable and enemy characters look fine and there's some okay background music, but the stones themselves look very pixelated. They went with a realistic look for them, but weren't able to present that in a good resolution, and the end result is a mess. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise there's not much to say. It is a Mahjong game with a few different modes that all don't change too much. The game itself is doing everything fine. There's not much positive or negative to say. It does its job, but nothing more. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I like Mahjong, but I don't really like the presentation of this one. Since there are so many Mahjong games on the Game Boy Advance, I'm sure we will find a better one. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Pocket Racing, on Japan known as Pocket GT on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by MTO and released 1999 in Japan and 2000 in the PAL regions. It is an arcade-style racing game in which you drive on different tracks against NPCs or against the time. You can choose between different cars and tune them with the parts you unlock from driving the races. The presentation of the game is okay. Everything is in a cartoony style, and both the backgrounds and streets of the courses have an easy look. The cars are also nothing special. The transition between the sprites when you do a curve is very visible, and in the beginning the sprite of the car is split in the middle, looking quite buggy. There is no background music during the races, just a monotonous engine sound. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay of the game is average. It's a typical arcade racer. You start at the last position, and if you drive good, you will from time to time overtake another car. The tuning system with set improvements is nice but very basic. The whole gameplay is exactly that. Basic. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The whole game is a very average experience. There are better looking and feeling games with the exact same style, like V-Rally Championship Edition. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Kamen Rider SD Hashire Mighty Riders on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Yukata and released 1993 exclusively in Japan. It is a top-down motorcycle racer game in which you avoid obstacles, kick your enemies and try to make it to the goal without exploding. To do that you play in a team of 3 or a single fly bug thing and play Rally on Grand Prix mode. Both modes are gameplay-wise identically. In the team of 3, every rider does their own level and they are not at the same time on the course. The presentation of the game is not bad but very basic. It is a top-down view and the course have some little background elements like streets or jets. The cover of the game looks very cool and the game has even in the races background music. That is, somehow, quite rare for such racing games. The special items you can get during the race look very easy. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points, mainly because of the background music and the cool cover. The gameplay is exactly what you would expect from such a game. You can accelerate or kick the enemy out of the way, which sounds cooler than it is, and you avoid the obstacles to not reach 0 life points. Unlike many games, here it is not so much about the placement in the race, but rather to survive until the end. That makes the other drivers more to obstacles that can cost HP than really competing racers. Something a bit more unique is the ability to hide the UI to see more of the course, and that you can move the camera forward and backwards to see a bit further ahead or behind you. There are cool quality of life features that not many games of that kind think of in the Game Boy era. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an okay racer, but really not more. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review ChuChu Rocket on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Sonic Team and released 2001 everywhere. The goal of the game is to bring as much mice as possible in the time limit to your own rocket. The mice run along the walls on the levels and with arrows that you can place on the ground you can control their movements. The moment they step on an arrow they change their direction. You can not only control the mice in that way but also your enemies like the cats that you need to keep away from your mice. The presentation of the game is simple but cute. The mice and cats look fine but besides that there's not much to see. The overall theme of the game is nice though. Very cool is that you can replace the mice with your own drawings and even gives that drawing some animations. The background music is fine but not too special. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Judging the gameplay is a little hard for me because the game has a very strong focus on multiplayer with the ability to play with multiple person with only one cartridge. Sadly, I have no friends, so I can only judge the single player of the game. The single player is fine but not too special. You can play different challenges to get all the mice in the rockets in a certain time, or to get them all in the rocket with a limited amount of arrows. These challenges are fun, but it's clearly not the focus. I give the single player gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Only multiplayer. I can imagine this game being a lot of fun in multiplayer, but in single player the puzzles and challenges will not keep you engaged for long. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Frogger Advance, The Great Quest on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by KCEA and released 2002 in North America and the PAL regions. This game is starring Frogger, but it is not a Frogger-like game, but a platformer. You are Frogger and you're searching in a medieval fantasy world for a princess to kiss you so that you can turn into a beautiful prince. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks okay-ish. Everything looks a bit pixelated. All the sprites look a bit like a Donkey Kong Country style. So like they used pre-rendered 3D images for the sprites, just in worse. The backgrounds and foreground are also looking average at best. I am not a huge fan of the presentation of the game. The cutscenes telling the story are just images with some text, but without any effort. The music is okay. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is the average platformer. You can jump and attack, and every few levels you get some upgrades like a double jump or a stronger attack. Nothing creative to be found here. The enemies are mostly just standing or walking around and are not really reacting to you. On the positive side, you can attack in multiple directions and the levels don't use bottomless pits if you fall down, but often have some alternative way or way back to the platform. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. But it is a very average platformer that, for no reason whatsoever, has Frogger as the main character. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Dragon Warrior 1 and 2, on Japan known as Dragon Quest 1 and 2 on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Tosi and released 1999 in Japan and 2000 in North America. It is a collection of the two NES games Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 with small changes. These two games are classic JRPG games. Dragon Quest 1 released 1986 in Japan and Dragon Quest 2 1987. These games established a lot of features that JRPG games got known for. The story of the first one is very simple. An evil dragon stole the Orb of Light and now monsters roam the land. Sometime after that, the dragon even kidnaps the princess. Now it's your task to defeat the dragon and save the princess. In the second game, the story takes place 100 years after the events of the first one and tells the story of 3 of the hero's descendants. The game looks fine. The presentation is quite simple. It is a typical JRPG style and much of the overworld looks a bit too simple, especially the buildings. It is not bad, but also not outstanding good in any way. The music on the other hand is great and the game does have cutscenes. The combat is the typical seeing the enemies from the front view. What I don't understand is why the first game has a nice background in that fighting scenes and the second game has nothing. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is exactly what you would expect. You go out, you grind your levels, you find and buy better equipment to better grind enemies, and from time to time you find more party members. After that you find the items you need and go defeat the boss. Nothing special here. The typical genre problems like high encounter rates are here too, and the games are grind heavy. Sadly, the second game got directly more annoying than the first in terms of battle. The encounter rate seems to be higher, and from the beginning there are multiple enemies which drags the fighter out. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just for genre fans. These games are old JRPGs, that means grinding. But if you like that, you will find solid games that spawned a franchise that is still going strong today. It gives the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Dinotopia, the Time Stone Pirates on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by RFX Interactive and released 2002 in North America and Europe. It is a platformer in which you need to help the dinosaurs against the evil pirates. The pirates stole the eggs of the T-Rex and you need to bring them back. But maybe that is just distraction for a way bigger heist. In every level you need to find some item and go to the end of the levels. The pirates will try to stop you by rubbing their big bellies on you. So evil. The game looks not bad. The sprites are nice and the backgrounds are good too. The levels have all different background tracks that repeat a bit too quickly but are not bad in total. I like the variety in enemies. Sometimes the game can look quite buggy when grabbing onto a ledge, since the game lets you grab even in the middle of a platform. Sadly, all the story is presented very poorly. From time to time a friend of you comes around with a dinosaur to explain the plot points in a boring dialogue. That is all the presentation for the story there is. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very basic. It is a platform. You have an attack to defeat the pirates and there is a climbing system, so that is both good, but besides that there is nothing special. The most levels feel very similar to each other, and the levels that are more like minigames are worse. The gameplay is basic, but it works. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is actually better than I expected from the title, but there's still no real reason to play it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review The Real Ghostbusters, Garfield's Labyrinth, and Mickey Mouse 4 Mahuno Labyrinth on the original Game Boy. While that might sound like a weird combination of games at first, it is actually all the same game. They just swapped some sprites like the protagonist and some stuff like Extra Life and changed the game like this for each region. North America got The Real Ghostbusters, the PAL regions Garfield's Labyrinth, and Japan Mickey Mouse 4 Mahuno Labyrinth. This game was developed by Kotobuki Systems and released in 1993. It is a puzzle or platformer in which you need to find all the little stars in a level to get a magical key to open the door to the next level. The presentation of the game is, no matter what version, very simple. The sprites look okay, but not more, and the presentation of the level is really basic too. The music is okay, especially in the Ghostbusters version, because there you get the main theme in the Game Boy version, which is quite cool. Obviously the presentation of the game does not matter for the gameplay at all, otherwise replacing the characters wouldn't have been possible. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very basic too. Collect stars, open door, repeat. The only special thing this game has is the ability to destroy some blocks in the levels. There the challenge is to think about when to destroy what blocks so that the stars are not getting unreachable. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is just an interesting game because of the wild changes in the localization, and that's it. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Nikan Birotomon Club on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by IMAX and released in 1998 exclusively in Japan. The genre of the game is a simulator maybe? Hard to describe, but to me it felt like a combination of Tamagotchi and phone simulator for children that don't have a phone yet. The presentation of the game sucks. There are some scribbled faces of people talking to you and that's it. That faces are even similar to each other. Besides that, there's just text. No one put an effort in that. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. I played the game quite long but didn't really find gameplay. You can call people or write some SMS, and that's it. It feels like there should be minigames, but I couldn't find them. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I don't think the target audience for that game, which I guess is people with no phones and want to act like they have one, still exists. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review Harvest Moon 3, on Japan known as Pukojo Monogatari GB3 Boy Meets Girl on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Victor Interactive Software and released 2000 in Japan and 2001 in North America. It is a typical Harvest Moon and with that farming game. The story takes place after Harvest Moon 2 and brings you to a new farm on an island. There you don't farm alone but together with a partner. You can choose in the beginning if you are a male or female character and your partner will be the other gender. While the characters play similar, they don't play the same. The male character has more energy and the female more starting money. As an NPC, the male character will take over watering the plants and the female taking care of the animals. The game looks very nice. I like the style. Everything is colorful and brings a good mood. There's a lot of small details, like a mole coming out when you plow the dirt. The sprites look good and have nice animations for sprinting and jumping over things, for example. The music is complementing the graphical presentation and brings a relaxed mood. Sadly, the map of the game is not connected but has a small menu. The menu looks cute and has different weather effects, but I still think a connected map would have been better. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise, the game does a lot of things right. You can sprint, jump over objects, and the menus are very clean. On the other hand, the game is limited by the controls of the Game Boy Color. There are just 2 buttons, so there's no quick change between tools, which would have been very useful. The farm is also a bit confusing from the layout, and I don't like that the island with the farm has no shop and you need to go to the main island to buy things, which is just possible on 2 weekdays. The differences between male and female characters are a nice idea, but the decision that the game of the female character ends after marriage is interesting, but not good. Still, all the negatives are small things. The main gameplay of making the farm better and getting more and more rich with farming is great. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. Harvest Moon is a classic, and that for a good reason. That is a fun, cozy game. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review the Battle of Olympus on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Radical Entertainment and released exclusively in the PAL regions in 1993. The game has the Greek mythology as a setting and is from the playstyle very similar to The Legend of Zelda 2, just in a bit worse. Everything is a bit confusing to navigate, not very intuitive, and not feeling so good. The game is saved by an unnecessary long password system. The game looks okay, the sprites are fine and the backgrounds are okay too. The music is quickly repetitive, but there is background music, which is nice. Sadly, not only the music is very repetitive, but the whole presentation. The sprites of the NPC repeat quickly, the buildings look all the same, and the backgrounds too. It gives the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is just like the presentation, a bit boring. It is very clearly inspired by The Legend of Zelda 2, but kind of worse in every way. The fighting system is just button mashing, and orientation in the world is very difficult. The whole game is hard to play. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, it is bad. If you want to play a game that style, take Legend of Zelda 2. I'm not sure why to even copy that principle, it is not the most popular Legend of Zelda game. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we review No No Puzzle Chailien on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Creatures Inc. and released exclusively in Japan in 2005. It is a puzzler game which you always move around 4 tiles and solve different puzzles with that principle. The game has a unique and I think very cool style. Everything's colorful and a bit stupid. The characters look funny, the music is good, and there's even a start cutscene. The principle of the puzzle is visually good explained. I didn't need to translate anything to understand how the game's played. It is not the most complex or impressive graphics, but I like the consistent style of the game. It reminded me a bit of the Katamari series. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is lacking. The principle of the puzzles is always the same. There's just one kind of puzzle, shifting around the tiles. That is used to do different things, like making way for the little figure while it walks, or cooking with getting food in black holes. Yeah, that's how I cook at home too. But the principle is getting old quickly, and the only thing you find with playing the game more is doing the same stuff, just faster. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Sadly, the nice presentation of the game is getting held back by the repetitive and a bit boring gameplay. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review The Hobbit, the prelude to The Lord of the Rings, or in Japan known as Hobbit no Bokuin, Lord of the Ring Hajimari no Monogatari on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Sapphire and released 2003. It is an puzzler action RPG game that is following the story of Bilbo Baggins and the dwarves on their quest to get back the Erebor from the dragon smoke. The style of the game reminds me a lot of Legend of Zelda. You play Bilbo Baggins in an isometric view and you solve puzzles and fight against evil monsters like wasps, bugs and big wasps. The presentation of the game is doing a lot of things right. It is a cozy, magical atmosphere that is highlighted by the music and the colorful sprites. While not really impressive, the presentation does set the right mood for the game. The sprites can, especially during movement, look a bit weird, but most of the time the game is looking fine. I like the map of Bilbo's journey that is even visible from the main menu. The presentation is doing its job, but not much more. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Who would have known that Bilbo's adventure is mainly pushing blocks to the conveniently marked spaces to make new ways to climb? Not long ago I read The Hobbit and I don't remember him writing about all that block pushing. The puzzles in the game are very repetitive, and while the game clearly took inspiration from the Legend of Zelda games, something that was there from Zelda 1 is missing: the open world. So you have to solve the puzzles and you always know what to do because you didn't miss an item or anything like that. There is no backtracking. That makes the puzzle solving so much easier, and with the puzzle designs of this game, quite boring. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a not very inspired Legend of Zelda clone that is retelling The Hobbit. I like The Hobbit, but this game is sadly boring. I'm sorry, Bilbo Baggins the Block Pusher. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Star Wars Episode 1 Racer on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by PAX Softtonica and released in 1999. The game released on multiple consoles like PC, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, and of course the Game Boy Color, which is the version we are looking at. It was even not so long ago released for PlayStation 4 and Switch. The game is a Star Wars game that focuses on the pod racing that we see in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You play as one of many pod racers and race a 1v1 against another one on different courses. Whenever you beat an opponent, you unlock that racer too. The racers have different stats, like max speed, acceleration, body strength and more. There is no real story mode, just driving against different racers on the various planets. The game looks fine. The pod racers are colorful and look different enough to recognize them. The tracks are all a bit different too, which is mainly the colors they use. There's even a very short start cutscene. The real star of the presentation is the main track, which is a version of the theme of the first film and a forward-pushing version. That song is great, but also the only real music there is. Especially during the races, the background music is missing. There's just an annoying engine sound and that's it. The whole presentation has the problem that it is good, but too less variation. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The game always feels fast. That is something very important for a pod racer game, but not so easy to achieve. It needs to feel fast, but at the same time not unfair when it comes to curves on the track. The game is doing that really good. While the gameplay feels good, the same problem as the presentation occurs here too. There's not much variation. There is no story mode or upgrade system for the racers or anything like that. You can race and unlock the other drivers, but there's not much long-term motivation, especially because the races feel too similar. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. Without nostalgia for it, I wouldn't recommend it. But it is not a bad game. I was positively surprised by it. It is fun, just not for long. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Titus the Fox to Marrakesh and back on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Acra Pacific and released in 1993 in North America and the PAL regions. It is a port of the Amiga, Atari and MS-DOS game with the same title. It is a platformer in which you play a fox that, based on the title, is going to Marrakesh and back. I have no idea why, because the Game Boy version has no story whatsoever. The levels just start. You can walk, crawl, jump and throw objects to defend yourself against literally everyone. Even the homeless people on the street hate you so much that they throw their precious bottles at you. The presentation of the game is a mixed bag. The sprites have a white outline, which is unusual and can look quite good. The backgrounds are very detailed and very dark, so the white outlines make sense. The problem is the limitations of the Game Boy. The backgrounds are very detailed, too much detail. Just with the 4 colors it gets hard to recognize what is what, and the backgrounds are often just too much, making it hard to see the important parts. The game is also heavily relying on sprite flicker, and that already with not so many sprites on the screen. And I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very boring. You don't have many options, you just walk and jump. There are always the same 2 objects you can pick up and throw at the enemies, but that is all. It looks like you should be able to stand on them, which is apparently possible in the original versions, but in this port you cannot, making them just a pointless and annoying weapon. The level design is also very boring and often relying on invisible buttons, which I think is weak. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a not very good platformer. I never tried the original. Maybe it is fun, but this port here for sure not. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Mass Patrol, the Kleptoid Threat on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by GXB Interactive and released 2007 exclusively in North America. It is a mathematic and logic learning game disguised as a space shooter. You get different tasks visible in the top left corner, and you need to shoot asteroids or enemy spaceships based on the right answer to the task. The presentation of the game is doing its job. I'm happy they chose a theme, in this case spaceships, and stick with it. That is not always the case with such learning games. There's also some okay background music. At the same time, the sprites and levels in total all look a bit bad. It all looks like it's not fitting perfectly together, and things like the spaceship as a cursor to select the mission is a good idea, but the way they did it, it looks cheap. It gives the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is not very exciting. I'm not sure how old the target audience for the game is, because obviously the player needs to be able to read to understand what to do and to do the tasks. But some tasks are like, what is greater, 1 or 8? And I think the most children that are able to read don't need help with that. I think the balancing is a bit off here. The games are always the same, shoot the thing with the right answer on it. There's not much variation in that. The game works, but it is not interesting. Since I'm not the target audience, I want to be nice to the game. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think no one who watches the video here is part of the target audience. And even if you need help to figure out what is greater, 1 or 8, I cannot recommend it. I'm sure there are better learning games out there. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.